That was Deeper Love by Landry Cantrell. Guys, it's Sunday morning, so welcome to yet another week. Welcome to another Sunday, and welcome to spending a little bit of time with us here at Rhema CC. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host, and I do happen to love spending my Sunday mornings with you guys. So I hope you're having a good one. I hope you've had a great week. I hope that things have been quite delightful, that you've had a spectacular week. And if you haven't, I hope that this is the beginning of a new one for you, that you are able to get through this coming week with a much better or brighter outlook for how things have been. And if this week happens to have been fantastic, well, I'm cheering with you. I'm so thankful that things have been great. Anyway, I'm going to get down to business pretty quickly because I tend to love doing things with a bit of depth here on a Sunday morning, and I've got to sort of just pace myself in terms of time. So I need to get into it pretty quickly. Now, last week I spoke to you guys about, well, I kind of ended things with one of two directions of what I was going to do in the next few weeks. The first one was looking and exploring the 7 deadly sins, and the second one was looking at spiritual gifts. And I, at the time, mentioned I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with it, and I kind of have been spending most this week just sitting on it thinking I don't really know where to go with it, but it just feels like we should go the first way. So I'm going to explore over the next few weeks the 7 deadly sins with you guys. Now, what are the 7 deadly sins? Well, I wasn't really sure of what it was myself, but in year 8, I'm pretty sure it was year 8, I did a drama presentation in my drama class. We had to do an Easter chapel service with the school that I went to, and I did drama as an elective because I loved it, probably because I'm quite a dramatic person, but anyway, that's a side note. And what we ended up talking about was, the whole thing was based on the 7 deadly sins. So obviously the brain of a 13, 14-year-old girl, I probably didn't grasp as much as what I do now as an adult. But the 7 deadly sins, if we are looking at them, include pride, greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony, and sloth. So basically these things are they're almost like labels for the things that can drive our sinful ways, or and the way that we start to perceive the world. If we start to sort of focus or direct our attention from a prideful perspective, things look different. We approach life differently. If our life becomes based on greed, now where does that stop? It starts off with greed and it can feed into other things. Wrath, that tendency to just get fiery and just get angry about stuff way too quickly. Where does that escalate to? Lust, envy, gluttony, and sloth. Now that's the list that I've just given you. We will be looking at over the next few weeks how these things can really transpire who we become in the world. Now, we've covered some positive stuff previously. We've looked at who we are in the world, and the fact that God has designed us perfectly how he wants us to be. And I think there's been some really encouraging stuff in that, because we've been able to really examine just this, the beautiful creation that God has given us by looking at the human body and the soul of who we are, and just the way that he intricately has designed each of us as individuals. But I guess the important stuff for us when we're looking at the heart and really challenging who we are, it also comes from a point of having to look at the things that drive us in terms of the things that keep us away from God. And these 7 deadly sins are a really good way to start. So over the next few weeks, as I said, we'll be exploring this a bit more. But today I'm going to start with, I actually think I'm going to start with pride. It's been a big one for myself this week. It's been a little bit interesting just how, being challenged with this stuff has led me to kind of go, okay, this is the place where I need to start. And we're going to get into that a little bit further in the next little bit. So for the meantime, though, I am going to love you and leave you for just a little while. We're back in about, half an hour-ish. But in the meantime, guys, I hope you enjoy this. This is But the Cross by Ben Fuller. See you soon. And that was Passion by Young and Free, guys. I'm Lindy Jones. Welcome from us here at Rhema CC. I hope you're having a beautiful morning. We are looking at actually having quite a beautiful day. After a few days of rain, which happens to be my idea of beautiful myself, we are looking at a nice, sunny, bright day, hopefully, if everything goes to plan. But yeah, I guess if you look at it with open eyes and you kind of think, oh, rain's fantastic and sun's pretty fantastic, you've got a real case of win-win there. So either way, you're in for a good day, I guess. Having said that, we are here this morning and we need to get down to business because I am talking big things this morning. The 7 deadly sins. Now, we are talking pride today. Pride in our world at the moment tends to have a lot of meanings, doesn't it? It's kind of one of those things that when we think of pride, when we hear the word pride, our brain can spin off in a million different directions. So what is it? What is pride? Well, that's actually what we're going to look at this morning. And why then? Why is it important to examine how pride can impact us? Let me start from the beginning. All right, I'm going to look at it from a few different angles, but in terms of pride from a biblical perspective, we are kind of looking at, I guess it can be, if I'm going to go directly from Google, a descriptive way of understanding what pride is. Word for word in front of me actually at the moment is what let's see. The sin of pride is an excessive preoccupation with self and one's own importance, achievements, status or possessions. According to this is just on Google. It was just Bing.com is where I found this. It just popped up with AI. So that was the results that came just from looking at it myself. They've also got here, the sin is considered rebellion against God because it attributes to oneself the honour and glory that only God is due. And I think that this is true. This is kind of where we're going this morning. Pride itself, in this day and age, I think we have to be very careful because we tend to think of pride as there can be that sexuality thing where there's that sense of, I am who I am because... or I should be prideful because I am built this way in a sexual nature, or I am drawn to these sorts of people or this particular scenario. Pride can be that, but pride can also be in terms of the things that we are driven to, almost seeking that assurance from other people. Now, this one actually landed on my doorstep this week. And I don't know how my son feels about me talking about this, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. I'm sure he'll be okay. But we were talking about, I don't actually know how it started. We were talking about universities and just the way that different educational standards are, I guess, perceived based on different universities. I think initially he may have thought that I didn't get it. I think he kind of was going, Mum, don't you understand that, if you go to this university, you're going to have more opportunity to get work or a job in a field that you're interested in. Now, 15-year-old boys can be like that. They can be a little bit like, you haven't got a clue because, you're my mum or my dad. So, that's just how it is. And thankfully for me, I've had 3 15-year-olds come through my house before. So I'm used to dealing with 15-year-olds and that sense of, oh my goodness, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So I was ready. I was ready for this one. But then I challenged it some more. And I found myself getting a little bit fired up over this one because I tend to be someone who does not, I don't like putting people in a class based on, the stuff that's, whether it's their education, whether it's their financial status, whether it's, where they've been and what they've done. They're all great parts of the story. I love getting to know the people, but they're just part of people's lives. And I think we live in a world we tend to put people on a pedestal based on what we see from the outside. And I'm not drawn to that in any way at all. So I was really set in my ways on this one. I was not going to allow my son to be swayed by the idea that you are more by what you experience. And we dug deeper and we had quite a little disagreement. It was several hours of just, battling it out. And he's a really sensitive kid and he's a beautiful kid, but he, again, is 15. So I just needed to talk some stuff out with him. But as we got to the bottom of it, I kind of realised that what it was for him was this sense of achievement that he was driven by. Now, here's just one kid out of the billions in the world who, if we're really honest, we can be so driven by what other people are going to perceive based on the stories behind us, the things we've done, the accomplishments, the possessions that we have. But you know what? In an instant, God can strip you of all of that. He can take away the things you own. He can take away the education that you have. He can take away the things that, the status or the financial stability that you think you have. And then what? What are you standing on then if you haven't got that stuff anymore? I think there's some real stuff in there that we need to really think about. I think there's some real depth to this. The pride that we exhibit. And churches are no different. If I'm completely honest, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and I said I can't stand religious tradition, if you like, in terms of we just do this because we just do this, and this is seen as doing the right thing. For me, there has to be some sort of reason behind it. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? I've got to understand the why before I can really observe the value in something. And I think that in itself, that tests pride. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing, even in the churches that we're involved in? Why is our church doing this? Is it because we want to look like we're playing the part, or is it because we really do believe that this is a God movement? Now that's a big one, because you really have to test it. You really have to question it. You have to think about what is important to you. And are you doing it because when I say it, that it could be anything. Are you doing it because you think it's important for the affirmation of others? Or are you doing it because it's the right thing by God? Guys, we've got a lot of questions to sort of absorb in this one. I'm going to dig deeper as this week unfolds. But yeah, as I said, it's a lot in it. Again, it's a big topic because there is so much to explore. But pride itself, really recognizing why we are driven by the things that we are driven by, and questioning, is it really worth it? Let's look at that some more. I'm going to see you guys in a little while, but for now, this is going to be a very special song. Yeah, enjoy You Know Me Better by Stars Go Dim. I'll see you guys soon. Morning, my little sunshines out there. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host. Welcome to Rhema CC. I hope you're having a great day. I really do mean that. I hope you might be my sunshine, but I hope that the sunshine is actually shining deeply and brightly and beautifully on you today. All right, before we get too far into things, guys, we were listening to Same God by Hannah Kerr, and it's cool. We do have the same God. We've got one God that we can celebrate together, and that is an awesome truth. All right, let's get to it. We are talking all things pride today. We are talking we're talking 7 deadly sins actually, but we're starting with pride. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking we're going to talk more in depth on each of them. And I'm actually looking forward to this myself, just to be tested on a lot of these things, because I think it's good to be challenged. It's good to confront these things that could be a controlling force in our lives. And sometimes we don't actually get a name for it. Sometimes we're not forced to confront the things that we're carrying with us. And I know just looking over the stuff myself, just getting prepared for this, I know that I kind of looked and thought, oh, where do I sit on that one now? There's been times where I've been more challenged with some of them compared to others. So yeah, I hope that you're challenged through this as much as I have been and will be. It's interesting. It's interesting to sort of observe and think about the stuff that we're allowing to get between us and God. So again, we're starting with pride today, and pride is a big one. It's a big one because we live in a very prideful world, and we are driven by what I can achieve. What can I do? What can I tell people I own? What can I do to prove that I'm enough? Now that one little phrase there, I think, is a really good place to start. How do I know that I'm enough? And I think that's at the core of pride. Now I mentioned previously, just was a little while ago when we were meeting or chatting last time, early this morning, I had spoken to my son about this during the week, and I had after a few hours of just battling it out, trying to work out what was going on between the two of us, because we were both getting very fired up from our different positions on this one particular topic in terms of, how people see education and that sort of thing. And I had to really think, where is he coming with this? And it came down to one question. And I asked him straight out, do you feel like there's a part of you that validates your worth if you have a certain level of education? Now, this is a 15-year-old kid. And his answer was, yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. So what are we living for? Are we living for the affirmation of others? Are we living for that constant praise? Are we living for that sense of purpose because other people have affirmed us? And for ourselves, what sort of expectations do we have on ourselves? How do we know that we're living the life that we need to be living? Because how have we actually spent time observing the reasons that we're driven to do what we do? Now, there's a lot of questions in that, and I get it. It can be, when someone's asking these questions, it can be a case of, hang on, just give me a moment to just process this. I've got to work out how I answer that. But I think it's really, really important for us to just really consider why we are driven by the things that we are. What's important to us and why? What is important to it? Is it about us? Is it about us being perceived a certain way? Guys, we have got so much that we can be proud of in terms of our faith. Everything that happens to us can be pointed back to God. When we're being tested and challenged, biblically we're told that's a moment that we are being tested on and challenged on who we can become through the process. When we're having moments of triumph, that is a moment that we can pinpoint back to God and go, the blessings have been poured out through you. When things feel uncertain, but sort of, through time, the path becomes a bit clearer and cleaner. They're the times that we can point back again to God. He cleared the path. He made it easy for me to see. I couldn't have done this without him. The world is going to tell us that it's us. The world is going to constantly say that it comes down to you. You've got choice in it. You can do this. You've got the power in a situation. Sometimes that power is stripped from us, and sometimes we have a choice in how we're going to respond. Are we going to respond in a way that draws attention back to us? Or are we going to give it back to where it's deserved? And that is back to the God who knows us, who loves us, who challenges us, who knows our heart and our temptation to take that those accolades and that praise that comes from the world. We have a choice. Are we going to give it back to him and say, you know what? He made the path perfect for us. The tough stuff was what I needed. I needed that. But the great stuff, my goodness, I'm so blessed through that. And I guess when it comes down to it, perspective plays a big part of that again. So much of what we talk about here on a Sunday morning really does come back down to perspective. But pride and humility, these are two traits that we can be challenged on. And yeah, I think it's just really cool that we have so much scripture that we can refer to when it comes to pride. I won't go through all of them now, but there's a lot out there in terms of just examining our heart and what we're driven by. You know what? I'm going to come back shortly and I'm going to go through some of these verses with you guys, and then we'll pull it together a bit more. But yeah, take some time this morning and think about your sense of pride. What are you driven by and why? And is it about you or is it about God? And that's the two main points I think that we need to bring from today. Pride can drive us, but pride can also be, it can be a reminder of the things that get between us and God. Because if it becomes us, there's no point. If it becomes about God, there is so much point. Let me just leave you with this one. Proverbs 16:5. Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished. I will dig just really quickly through some others. Proverbs 29:23, a man's pride shall bring him low, but honour shall uphold the humble in spirit. Proverbs 16:18, pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. So basically there's some warning there. You've got to treat pride with what it is and with respect, and you've got to be prepared that, things can come crumbling down when there's too much pride. Let's talk about that some more soon. I've got some, just as I'm talking, I've got some things kind of flicking through my little brain going, right, I think there's some stuff here for me to sort of examine and explore a little bit more. But we will do that when we come back around about 9:15ish, and I'll see you guys then. Morning, Coasties. Welcome back to Rhema CC. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host. Guys, you just heard Together from, that was by For King and Country and Kirk Franklin. Good stuff. It is good thing that we can do so much together. So let's just follow through on that, and we can continue with what we're doing here this morning on this Sunday, this hopefully beautiful Sunday morning. I think it's really cool that we can spend a little bit of time together. So let's get to it, hey? We are talking all things pride this morning, and the reason we are doing that is because we're going to be exploring the 7 deadly sins and how they impact us. The 7 deadly sins, to give you guys a bit of a run by, how we kind of came to this. I think it's really important for us to recognise that we can be driven by or controlled by, really when it comes down to it, kind of seven sort of aspects of sins that can really control our lives. Now, as I said, we are talking about pride today, but some of the others that we will cover over the weeks coming are greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony, and sloth. So these things are things that gets between us and God. They're sort of just given a bit of a label so we can go, right, that's what I'm dealing with at the moment. I'm being driven by a prideful sense. I'm being driven by greed. I'm being driven by, that wrath, that need to fire up and get angry at the things that don't probably even matter, but there's obviously something underneath it. I might be driven by lust. There might be things in my life that I'm yearning for and wanting too much of, and I may have no control over that. I may be envious. There may be things I see others having, and that can be a big one. There's actually 2 this week that I was sort of going, where do I go? Do I start with pride or do I start with envy? And so that may be next week, but I'll dance around that a bit as we get through this week. Gluttony, wanting too much, being a little bit of a glutton. Let's just stick with that for now. And sloth, having no desire to get things moving, just kind of, whatever. These are things that we're dealing with and we're going to discuss. And obviously you can see a lot of mental health issues that can play in some of those. So we'll talk a little bit about those as we get through them as well. But generally that's kind of where we're looking. That's the sort of things the themes of where we're exploring things over the next few weeks. But as I said, we're starting with pride today. Now, I have sort of examined how much we can allow pride to stop us from allowing God to get the glory in everything. That sense of me, I have achieved, look what I've done, oh my goodness, I'm fantastic because I can do this, blah, 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 or I have been doing this, or look at that. Now, this is a tricky one for me because I know that I can be a very driven person, and I do like to achieve. But I know that it's also important for me to examine why I do that. Now, am I doing it for affirmation of others? Probably there are times where I probably do that. I would be lying if I said that I don't, because I am human, just like every one of you. And I would say that I, probably have had times where I'm like, yeah, cool, this is nice to get that affirmation. There are other times when I put things out there and I think, I've kind of put that out there because I can't explain how I did that. That's kind of cool. I don't know how I did that. But then when you get to it, I think deeper than that is that need to explore or understand and comprehend that often the only way that I've done whatever I've done is because God has opened one door after another. Or he's allowed me to have that time to get those things done. Or he's just provided the right resources for me to be able to do that. Or He's provided the support to be able to achieve the goals that I need to do. So in everything that I might achieve, the world might go, oh, that's awesome. I can't believe you've done that. My response should not be, yes, I know, I'm pretty amazing, aren't I? My response should not be that at all. It should be a case of, no, yeah, I have done that. I don't really know how I did it, but I know that God allowed it. I know that God provided. I know that God found the way for me to be able to do that. And I hope and pray that I never come across that way. Now, I have this brain who, my brain can be on fire. It can be in a million different directions at once. And I can struggle to stop, which can be a very anxious sort of response at times. But I am the one who will wake up in the middle of the night and will sit there and devise plans for how I'm going to, do this thing or do that thing and, whatever else. I'm sitting there praying and just trying to process stuff. My brain does not stop. And I can honestly say there's a few times there when I was catching up with my psychologist, and I'm sure she was leaning towards exploring a sort of ADD, ADHD type brain. But I just simply said to her, look, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is a superpower. I've had to learn to go back to the things that I've started and make sure I consciously follow through on them, because I can get so distracted by all the different ideas. I've got this idea over here and that idea over that. I know I can get like that. But when I achieve them, I hope and pray it's never comes back to me, because I'm just doing I'm just following through on the way that God designed me. He designed me to be someone who can think about a lot of things at one time. It's not necessarily a positive thing. Can I say that? It's not always a great thing. But when I can achieve the things that I can, I don't want to take the credit for it. It's not about me. It's about a God who has equipped me to be able to do that. And he said, right, I know you can juggle all these balls in the air, so I'm going to just trust you with it. I don't want to take the glory for that. I don't want to achieve a lot and me get that sense of validation from it. I hope and pray with every part of me that everything that I can do in this life is a way that I can turn back to him and say, thank you for providing that energy or that stamina or that resource that I needed at that time. And I think that's a difference, guys. I think that is the difference, because we live in a world that affirms achievement. And when you're living in a Christian faith or trying to live out the Christian faith, I think we really need to challenge ourselves on that. What are we driven by? Is it the affirmation of others? Is that sense of that pat on the back to go, yep, I can do this. This is fantastic. Or is that sense of humbleness, that response that says, I could not have done this without you, God. I needed you in this, and you followed through and you provided. And somehow we're looking at where we are at the moment and, I couldn't have done it without you. One of my kids used to laugh. She used to think she was so funny because she'd sort of quote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And this kid is an overachiever. I'll give her that well and truly. But part of me kind of cringes at that at the same time, because I think there needs to be that real, genuine, I can do this, but I can't do it unless God allows it, unless God equips, unless God provides, unless he provides the way. And there's just that sense of just that need to really challenge and really knock those prideful thoughts and those behaviours on the head, and with a whole heart grab hold of the knowledge that it's true. We really can't do anything unless we have God with us to the extent that we need to. He doesn't set us up he doesn't set us up to achieve just merely because he wants to see us achieve. He challenges us further than that and says, what are you going to do with this? Are you going to bring it back to me? Are you going to give me the glory with this? Are you going to pay the respect that's due? And when there's a humble heart, he's got something more that he can work with. And I love that. I love to be challenged by that. I hope you guys can take away from that a little bit too this morning. Let me just kind of end this little part with this. Galatians 6:4, each one should test their own actions. then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. Oh, whoops, I've just bumped something on my computer. That was not good. Yeah, we are just, I've lost where I was at. Sorry, guys. For each one should carry their own load. Let me look for some others. We've got some other verses here. I'm trying to find the most appropriate for where we're going with this morning. James 4:6, but he who gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud but shows favour to the humble. Isn't that the truth? He wants to just see the pride, the sense of pride that we carry. He wants that to shrink, and he wants to use the humble. My goodness, look at Jesus. He was the most humble servant. It wasn't about him and what he was doing. Yeah, he affirmed the truth that he was the way, the truth, and the life. He is the way, the truth, and the life. But he did it in such a humble nature. James 4:10, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. There's something in it, guys. There's something in it when we can just let go of the pride that we carry. Because God values a pure heart, a humble heart. Jeremiah 9:23, this is what the Lord says. Let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. There's something in it for him. He wants to see your heart, and he wants humility in it. And finally, Philippians 2:3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. That's from Philippians 2:3, as I said. Guys, there's more. There is a lot more, but I'm not going to go into it just right now. You can look at this stuff yourself and question yourself. Am I being driven by ambition, by a sense of pride? Is it getting to the point where my sense of humility is being, blackened out? Am I being so driven by who I am, or the things I'm achieving, or the way that the world looks at me, to the point that I can't actually see whether or not God values who I'm becoming? And as we've read this morning, we're dealing with a God who shatters pride. And we're going to talk about that just before we go this morning. So when we come back, we'll look at that itself. And there's a lot in that one too. It's deeper and it's a bit more challenging, but I'm looking forward to sort of exploring that a little bit more with you guys, and I will see you very soon. All right, see you soon. Welcome back, guys. It is Lindy Jones here at Rhema CC. Welcome again to Sunday. I hope you are having a fantastic breakfast or morning tea if you happen to have been up a little bit early. Perhaps you're going for a walk. Perhaps you're catching up with church friends. Perhaps you're perceiving. What does that mean? Spending some time with family. I don't know. Whatever your day looks like, I hope it's going well anyway. Maybe you're having a bit of a rest this morning. Maybe you're getting ready for a big day. I don't know what your day is looking like, but whatever it happens to be, I hope that it's looking to be a positive one anyway. We've certainly been talking about some stuff that is challenging to the heart this morning. We've been talking one of the 7 deadly sins. So we're going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins over the next few weeks. And I started with pride today. We live in a world that, is quite absorbed with pride. And when we think of pride now, I think we tend to think of the whole, the whole sexuality stuff. I'm proud of myself because I am this sexuality. And, that's just such a minute part of what pride actually entails. So we're talking about that this morning. And we're talking about the fact that it can be something that becomes crippling to our relationship with God. When we allow pride to control or get in the way of who we are and the way that we do life, it can limit our relationship with God. It's like this big bulge kind of starts to bubble between us and God, and we can't see things the way that He does. We can't comprehend things for all they are because we're so busy consumed with what we're doing and how we've achieved and, what we own and our own attributes. And, it's very self-indulgent. It's very me. Look at what I have achieved. I've done this. Now, I am not innocent in any of this. When I look at this list before me, I'll just go through that again if you happen to be joining me this morning. This includes pride, greed, wrath, lust, envy, gluttony, and sloth. Now I look at that and I'm guilty of every one of those at different times. There's things there that I think, oh, yeah, I do remember being like that, or, oh, that's something I'm probably working on still now. We're human, we're going to battle with sin, and that's the truth of it, because we are very much human, and there's nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. But I think being on guard, and we are told scripturally that is so important, to just be on guard, because the devil, he's roaming around like a lion. He's ready to leap on us and go, yep, I'm going to throw something else at you. I'm going to tempt you. I'm going to take you away from what is important. And that obviously, in this case, is that foundational and that beautiful, secure relationship we have with our God. And so being mindful of the things that can get in the way is just such an important part of, it's such an important part of how we do Christian life. If we have our faith as our rock, as our, the reason for getting up and breathing and living each day, then we need to be mindful of the games that are played behind the scenes in terms of Satan's way of distracting that and destructing and all that stuff. But pride is a big deal for us right now in this time, in this era, in this life. Who we are seen to be is such a big part of that. And I think we need to challenge those thoughts and those behaviours that really kind of, they consume us. They give us the wrong sort of drive. I mentioned this morning that just looking at just a very brief definition, if you like, of pride itself, this just popped up as an AI response. It just says the sin of pride is an excessive preoccupation with self and one's own importance, achievements, status, and possessions. And that was just from bing.com, I think, from memory. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that just popped up on my initial search when I was just looking at the definition itself of pride. It's so me. It's so driven by me and how I'm perceived. This is the thing that I think it's encouraging and it's confronting, because God sees so much beyond that. I think for me, one of the hardest times in my life have been where I have been forced to confront who I've become to the world and allow God to knock those down. I think becoming a single mum at one point was a big deal for me. It was a very humbling experience, because I thought I had the marriage, I thought I had the car, and I had the home and the children and the white picket fence, and then in an instant, it was just gone. It was just, I had what I thought other people wanted, what I wanted, and then it was gone. And what was left was this yearning for God, this deep yearning for knowing Him. So I think I want to challenge you guys today. I want to ask you to think about the things that you value and why. Is it about you? Is it about how you're perceived? Is it about how you are accepted in your community? And this is in churches as well. One thing I will say that fires me up in the Christian life or Christian world is hypocrisy. I cannot stand seeing people, who fluff their way through it and they become this, this extraordinary thing on the outside, but then underneath there's a lot of fakeness there. There's a lot of stuff there that's just not the real deal. And that, for me personally, I've really struggled with. So maybe that's my own sense of pride getting into that and keeping things, I don't know. But I do struggle with that. And I think it can be so destructive to the church when we've got people who are so driven by how it's perceived, how the things that we are doing are perceived, rather than, is that what God is really wanting for us at the moment? I know when there's been certain times in our ministry walk, just my husband and I, there's been times and temptations where people have come to us and said, oh yeah, but this church over there is doing that. And we should be doing that because look at what they're doing. And don't shouldn't you be doing this because this is what we do in churches? And You know, there's this sense of, I'm doing this because that's what is perceived to be the way that we're supposed to be doing it. That's fake. I'm just going to call it as it is. That is fake. That is being driven by a sense of pride. It's a sense of, I need to do this to be seen as doing the right thing. God doesn't call us all to, do things in the same way. He's given us boundaries and expectations. He's given us ways that He wants us to live. And the Bible is filled with that. It's a whole book of guidelines. But the way in which we have to do that, it looks different. So we have to be so careful with the way that churches do life, because we can be so drawn to, oh, but that's how that church over there is doing it, and we should be doing that because look how it's successful for them. They're doing great. They're getting all these people in the door. It doesn't matter. If God is not in it, if God is not calling us to that, then our direction as a church is based on pride. Churches, we need to be thinking more and more about what it is that God is wanting us to do. And we need to support each other. We don't need to ridicule that church that's down the road that's doing really well. We don't need to, belittle the church that's struggling. We need to humbly lift each other up, to support each other, to love each other, and to point back to Jesus, because that's the be-all and end-all. That's the reason we exist. Our love for God and our understanding of who He is and how much He gives us. Just by knowing Him, just by understanding the way that He has loved us deeply and just with just an absolute abundance. Guys, we have to grab hold of that to keep us humble. We can't be controlled by the things that we think we should be doing based on the perceptions of others. We have to keep our eyes on Jesus. We have to keep our eyes on God. We have to know that we are following His footsteps. And the need to compete, it's got to go. The need to say that you are worth more because you have done this, or you've been to this college, or you've been to this place to get your education, it's got to go. Yes, there's value in it, but it's not the whole value. The value is in who we are in God's eyes and how much we're following Him. Do we know our scriptures? Do we know with our whole heart that we're seeking Him? Do we prayerfully seek Him? Do we sit and just spend quality time with Him? And do we move hand in hand with Him? That's what we should be priding ourselves on. We have a God who moves through all of it. In our own individual lives, that didn't sound quite right, but also as a church, as our churches on the coast, as a church as a whole. Our pride does not come from us. Our pride comes from Him, and my goodness, we've got a God to be proud of. Get out there today, guys. Tell some people that you come in contact with about this God and how much He has equipped you, how much He has challenged you, how much He has loved you and celebrated you. He is the reason that we have every reason to be proud. So when we think of pride, be challenged, in your heart, but be proud of who He is. I hope you're going to have a fantastic week. I'm looking forward to exploring this even further with you guys in the weeks to come. As I said, I think we'll be doing envy next week, but we will see how we go. I'm going to just play it by ear and just see where God takes me, and then hopefully we'll be able to come back next week and explore things even further. In the meantime, guys, have a fantastic Sunday. I hope church goes well for you if you happen to be on your way to church right now. If not, I hope you have a fantastic day. And do remember, we have church on the radio if you can't get out this morning. I'll see you next week, guys. Have a fantastic one. Looking forward to it then. See ya.